now if the brand's not moving, you're behind. The TMA team came to us and they worked through a really amazing strategic plan, this all around inclusivity, different perspectives, like this idea of bringing the community into the museum more and really designing an identity that represented them. From that, we developed a strategic territory, which essentially was the transformative power of art for all of Toledo.
So to make this work stick, you need to be talking to not just the museum director, not just the head of marketing. You need to talk to, the people who sit and stare at the artwork all day, at the security who stand in the corner kind of anonymously, right? You have to actually also reach out to the people who live in the neighborhood, right? Who are using this as their backyard or, as their village square. We developed surveys that, really just leaned into finding out why did people use this museum? What did they want this museum to be for themselves, right? What did they want this museum to be for their families? Coming back to these questions and digging deeper each time. And what we were really hearing was that people absolutely had an incredible pride in this museum, right? And people use it as a neighborhood resource. They were seeing it as something that they were actively in a dialogue with, every day. We talked to members who said, I grew up on this street and this street was defined by this museum. And it is really what we look to. And these are people who grew up to become, board members of major institutions.
We set out to create identity that would evolve over time, like looking to the past and then taking those pieces forward, but then creating an identity for the museum that could evolve and, keep evolving, much like art, much like Toledo itself. So how do we create an identity that doesn't feel like it's becoming static?
It's really interesting because it has this very rich heritage of being kind of quote unquote the glass city. So it's where a lot of glass innovation has occurred over the past century and a half. We kind of had to tie the branding to this heritage of glass.
The details are not lost on a consumer, and when they're found, they further this idea of quality, authenticity, all the things that you want your brand to represent. So the website, which was such a huge piece of the rebrand, we infused those elements of glass, really subtle moments, but as you're scrolling, you get that sort of translucency, further nodding to Toledo's incredible heritage as the city of glass. And also, they wanted to bring the brand into the digital age, which is why that idea of transformation was really, really key. And you can clearly see that in the logo identity, how it's kinetic and transforms and is able to do it really systematically. That flexibility was so important because you're able to, again, infuse interesting different perspectives and ideas. 10 different angles of the T. There's 4 different modes that you can have the T in. One being a flat mode, prism mode, which is when it's clear and it sort of resembles glass. Another mode where you can activate the surfaces of the T, add color, add typography, images, and then the last mode, which is an outline mode. Also with the adaptive color palette, there's this really wonderful Easter egg, the T in the top left corner that's rotating. As you scroll down, if you hover over an image or a block of color, the logo changes color. Within the logo mark, there's something really beautiful. We built it motion first, but in static forms, we wanted to just add something a little extra to make sure that dimensionality was coming through. So the A in the back is ever just so slightly cut off, again, to just sort of allude to this idea of dimensionality, so that even when it's used statically, it still feels like it's coming across in dimension.
To us, that was indicative of the way that the community sees all the things that come through it, right? It's like, it's all relensed. It's all seen through a different perspective. It's all got a unique POV. That is the power of art, and that is the power of, the way a community engages an institution, right? Everybody has their prism that they look through. Everybody has their interpretation.
We was able to give that flexibility, again, for such a seemingly simple shape for the logo, but to offer so much to make it dynamic across multiple applications was a really beautiful thing to witness.
It's a terribly profound emotional experience. And I think that, again, the boldness of the work that we ended up coming up with and the way that it stretches and the way that it moves and its ambition really kind of lived up to what we saw in the city and what we fell in love with there.